Hello and welcome to another episode of the RotorHub International Podcast. And that's hosted by me, Gideon Ewers. I am the editor of RotorHub International. Actually, I'm on the road again today. This time I'm up in the UK's Midlands at the headquarters production facility, or production centre, I should say, number one for Hill Helicopters. And giving me the skinny on what is actually a momentous day for Hill, we'll get into that more in a minute, is none other than Jason Hill. Jason, busy times for you guys up at Hill Helicopters. Much appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, busy indeed, and welcome to BC1. It's great to have you.
Yeah, now Jason, let's dial it back. Let's take it back to the beginning of the tale, because the story is, to me, a fascinating one. First of all, it's hard to design and bring to production an aircraft, any aircraft. It's hard to design and bring to production a turbine engine. It's hard to design and bring to production an avionics suite. You guys are up here doing all three at the same time. I mean, it would seem to the casual observer a Herculean task. What gave you I'm trying to think of a not rude word to say, to think, yeah, we can do this. This is a great idea.
I think to follow your logic train, I'd say from my perspective, it would have been harder to be a guy that knew he could do it, that never tried. And so for me, it's always been this burning ambition, this burning desire to just get this thing done. I knew I could make a better helicopter. I knew I could make a next generation helicopter for general aviation, something that people would aspire to own, something that's like a trophy for all of your successes and your hard work in life. But when you take a step back and look at what that actually needs to be to live up to those expectations, that really defines what the engineering and the commercial program needs to be able to allow you to develop that. So we really started with a set of requirements that were take 5 normal sized people, and I define that as 95 kilos for a person and their bags for somebody that's in a lifestyle that can afford to buy a helicopter. And so you want to take, that can be your family, it can be business colleagues, 5 of those people and their bags, fly at 140 knots so you can get somewhere in a meaningful amount of time, and do that for 3 hours, and do it in opulent style. Make sure that when you get there, it draws gasps from people around you because it's so incredibly beautiful, and the experience of flying it is just so refined and enjoyable that it's something that you're going to want to work into your everyday life. Now, to do those kinds of things, we had to have a turbine engine. But the moment you look at the options that were out there in this class, the sort of 500 horsepower continuous class, by the time you bought the engine, you've already busted through what the price point is that the real market can afford. It's no good saying this is what it costs to buy all the bits and that's what people have to pay. That's not how economics works. If you don't offer your product at the right price, you don't have a business. And so it became very clear to us very early that if you wanted to make a helicopter that people were going to buy in droves, it had to be at around the £500,000 price point. And to do that, there's no way you were going to be able to buy either an off-the-shelf engine or a modern glass cockpit, which is what people expect. They want the flying experience to be simple, connected, intuitive. You can't fill it up with steam gauges. It had to be a modern interface. And so to deliver what it was going to take to make a business work, we had to do the engine and we had to do the avionics. And that's driven everything else after that. That's driven the need to manufacture all of this stuff in-house, to control the cost and the quality across the board. It drove the need to develop GT50. It drove the need to develop the digital cockpit. And then the rest of it is just about the process of how you do it. Now, if we were setting out to make a small gas turbine that needed to be 40% thermally efficient and last for 10,000 hours and do 1 million cycles, then you'd be absolutely right. That's beyond Herculean. That's impossible. You're not going to be able to do that without governmental levels of budget. If we were setting out to develop an all-new, multiply redundant avionics suite for all-weather IFR operations, the same applies. You're never going to do that.
You just can't do it, no.
But we're not.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about a digital version of some air data information and a bit of comms information being presented, a bit of ADS-B traffic, and that's it. It's a VFR helicopter.
Right.
So the avionics are actually very simple. We've got a high integrity user interface that looks the business, that sits over the top of some relatively inexpensive remote mount radios, remote mount transponder, an existing audio panel, all the bits that you can buy relatively inexpensive because there's still a reasonable market for those.
Sure.
And we're just cutting out the expensive players that dominate the market at the moment. And then with the engine, it's much the same. We're not setting out to create a super duper engine. This is just think of it as a greatest hits of the old and goldie, the golden oldies, shall we say? So it's an engine with a modest efficiency point. It's an engine with a modest life. It's a very proven collection of concepts that have been out there in industry for a long time. And all we've really done is done a really great job of the industrialization. So the making these components with very modern machinery that hold really tight tolerances, having a really intelligent design architecture that makes the thing easy and relatively inexpensive to design and to build. And so you've got to frame the problem that we solved properly. We're not designing an ultra sophisticated helicopter. It's a Billy Basic helicopter that looks great and it's cool. Delivered to a price.
Yeah, and I think it's that, just to circle back to the thing with saying, that whole point of saying, we've discovered a market that there are people who, if we can supply a VFR helicopter that goes 140 knots, carries you and 4 of your mates to somewhere nice, and doesn't have to be IFR, because who wants to go fly IFR anyway? And they're willing to hit that price point. Now, how do we engineer that?
Yeah,
that's fundamentally what you're saying. Is
let the business drive the engineering. Right?
Yeah.
Do not ever let an engineer run an engineering business.
Yeah.
Right. Because they'll solve the problem that they're interested in.
Yeah.
Not the problem that the market needs. You have to start with an absolutely fundamental understanding of the market requirements. What does the market want? And that wasn't a difficult thing to do. I've been flying helicopters since I was 20.
Yeah.
I've been around flying clubs and the people that own and sell, fly, hire and operate in the GA helicopter world forever. And these people have been vocal for decades about what was wrong with the incumbent products, no matter which flavor or which brand you buy, all the things that the businesses weren't doing right for the companies, all the things that the products weren't doing right for the companies and the individuals that owned them. And nobody was listening, and in a world where there's not really any serious competition, in a world where the barriers to entry are perceived to be so high, then you can sit there fat, dumb and happy forever.
And say,
right up until the point that you can't.
Yeah. So here's my 50-year-old, 60-year-old design.
Yeah.
And there it is. You use it or not. It's up to you. But it's that kind of thing, isn't it? It was actually saying that analysis, and we were talking a little bit earlier and saying it's perhaps a little bit that I want to talk a little bit about the engineering. I want to talk a little bit about the process, because one of the reasons I'm up here today is because of this landmark with the first run of the GT50, and which is obviously a milestone. But it does prove that it can be done, and that's the fundamental. Obviously, from here to service entry is another road, but it's there. It's an operating, sustainably running engine that hasn't blown up yet, or things like that. You can look and see. Yes, it's producing the sort of data that we're expecting. Because I was talking to one of the guys earlier, and he said, you can design, you can CAD all you want, but when it comes down the floor, you find out what is real and what isn't. And it's about that thing you're talking about with using those existing technologies and not reinventing the wheel.
But I think the thing that people have to understand, and it's a massive misconception, if I had £1 for every time somebody asked me about performance, will you hit the power? Will you hit the efficiency? Will you do this? Will you do that? Shows a level of misunderstanding of where the real difficulty is that's off the scale. So imagine starting in an office not much bigger than this conference room with nothing, and then think about all the things that you've got to do to design a brand new gas turbine engine and build not only all the prototype parts, but the factory and all the processes and all the equipment and absolutely everything that you have to be able to manufacture every one of those parts, and then all the test apparatus, and then get it onto a bench, and then get it to run and operate like an engine. That's the bit that's difficult. Now, if you put it on the bench and it doesn't hit the performance margins, what do you have to do? Well, if it doesn't hit the power, you're going to need to pass a little bit more mass flow, or you're going to need to tighten up some tip clearances. These are relatively trivial engineering things to do. If the efficiency is not good enough, you might need to tweak the shape of some blades. You might need to close some gaps and clearances. You might need to rebalance your SAS system or turn the temperatures up a little. These are trivial things to do.
Yeah.
That's not the problem. And speak to anybody that's been in gas turbine development for a number of years, and they'll usually tell you that you're lucky if you can get the thing to start
in the first place. Yeah.
And they never work properly when you start. And you spend a bit of time looking at the data, looking at which bit isn't behaving itself, and then making a series of minor modifications until it does exactly what you want. The beautiful thing about engineering is that physics always plays fair, right? If you do the right things, it'll work. It doesn't move the goalposts. It can't change its mind. And these are goalposts that are well established. We know what it takes to make compressors work. We know what it takes to make turbines work. We know what it takes to make combustors and fuel nozzles work, and bearings work, and
cooling across the high speed.
This stuff is not new. It's a low tech, simple engine. So for me, the biggest fear I had was having done all of this and spent all of this money, put the thing on the bench and just sat there, and it was just an ornament. It didn't do anything, right? Yeah. That would have been a much harder situation than at some point in the subsequent phases of the test program, finding that, we need to turn the wick up a little bit, we need to pass a bit more mass flow. I don't care about that. That's just engineering. It's just time. And then once you've got it set up and running right, we're going to beat the living daylights out of it until we've broken it in every way that we possibly can. So we know where that edge is. So we know exactly what it will do. So when that thing enters service, it is going to be bulletproof.
Yeah. And that's that whole thing. Again, circling back to that market that we talked about at the beginning, where there are individuals who want something that does these things at that price point and continuing price point, because it's one of the things. It's like it's not the purchase that gets you, it's the flying that gets you on costs wise and things like that. And so it comes back to that point. If you can develop something that does what you expect it to do, has the life you expect to do because you've thrashed it, and it's not cutting edge, and it's not this.
Yeah, that's not a question. It will do that.
Yeah.
All of the performance metrics, all of the reliability targets have got significant headroom in them, right? So even if it doesn't do what I expect it to do, it'll do what we've claimed.
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to be a difficult development program. This isn't. And all of the testing that we've done to date, it's done exactly what we wanted it to do.
Yeah.
The lube system works perfectly. The bearings that we developed from scratch work perfectly. All the temperatures were where we expected them to do. All of the performance numbers were exactly where we expected to do. And it fired up first time.
Yeah.
First time.
Yeah.
Very few people ever do that.
First time. So that's the point. So you now have an engine that's running. You're now moving off into trying to break it and trying to see what it'll really do.
We're going to exercise it first.
Yeah.
So the shape of the development program is that the initial thing is what you call a turn and burn. So you exercise all the individual systems first, make sure we're getting lubricant where we need to, run the rotor on the starter to start with, and so just get the thing running through all the speed ranges that we can until we stall the starter. You're looking then for rubs. You're looking for any unusual mechanical noises, any signs of vibration, anything that we didn't predict or didn't expect, and checking the balance of the rotor, because obviously these rotors are balanced out of the engine and then disassembled and built into the engine, and you don't get to balance them again at that point. So making sure we got all that right. And it ran sweet as a nut. It was amazing. And then get it turning and burning. So make sure you can ignite, make sure you can cross-light between the fuel injectors, and then exercise it downwards. So work out what the lowest self-sustaining speed is, the lowest stable speed, and then we can run it at a series of steady state operating speeds all the way up and down the operating range. We can exercise the acceleration rates and the deceleration rates so that we've got a map of the engine performance to feed into the FADEC system. And then once we've got once we've done that, we can then make sure that the gas generator turbine and the compressor are matched properly, which might mean we have to tweak the nozzle guide main throat areas and things like that. Get the core of the engine working properly. Then we do the same thing again with the PT and the drivetrain on, exercise all of that. And once we've got all that working, then we'll have a first pass at a certification style endurance test. So just prove that it can survive those aggressive accelerated life tests.
That's right.
And at that point, there's a bunch of strip downs and rebuilds in
amongst all of that.
And once we know that things basically working, then the slightly longer process of more representative duty cycles, lots of start stops, lots of representative duty cycles, lots of loading, lots of hours can begin on a number of engines.
Sure.
And we then we set about trying to find all the ways that we can break it, all the ways we can corrode it, expand its envelope over different climatic conditions and sand and everything that we all know.
All of those things that are out there that wreck engines. But, obviously we're zeroed in on the engine today because, it's a big point in the development cycle. But, walking around the facility this morning, there's loads of other stuff going on too. I was walking through the blade shop, and I was interested in that because I actually paid for my flying licenses by building racing sailboats, and so I was interested in watching the technologies being used in the laminates and the development of that laminate. The main rotor blade saying, yeah, we've got this and we've got that, and look, now we're bringing the lightning protection. All those sort of elements are all happening at the same time as well. So there's those. Even the air conditioning system I see is set up for a
They're
rig
usually
test.
rubbish. Everybody moans about them.
Everybody moans about aircon.
So
I mean, was there a helicopter or any aircraft that had an air conditioning system that actually actually worked? And it's a challenge, right? Especially if you have these high net worth individual customers who have an expectation.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff in an air conditioning system, or a climate control system is even more complicated. I mean, if you go and have a look at the stuff that's under the bonnet in your car, it is it's insanely complicated. Only people that are making tens or hundreds of thousands of units a year could ever contemplate putting something that complicated into a vehicle. But the market expectation is you'll have that level of functionality. So we've been working really hard to make sure that we can package big enough evaporators and condensers, big enough compressors, and route all of those things around, and then design the aerodynamics of the cabin so that you've got proper heating, proper cooling. You haven't got the silly situation where you're hot or cold in the front and the opposite in the back,
or even on one side or the other. And all that.
But even that, it's a full platform thing, right? Because the doors don't usually fit in helicopters, so it doesn't really matter what you do with the climate control system. If there's huge gaping holes in the doors, whatever's outside is going to be inside. So when you have a proper stiff monocoque carbon fiber structure, proper doors, proper door seals, then you can set about the business of controlling the cabin environment properly.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the big challenge for us has been able to do that as cost effectively as we can. So lean as much as we can on automotive componentry for these non-critical things, and then make sure that the weight doesn't run away with us, or that the package envelope is enormous. I mean, you saw some of the sides of some of those things on that rig are industrial, but you saw the size of some of those heat exchangers, the compressors and things. To get the levels of performance that people expect, it's really difficult to do that in an aircraft
and get the weight thing, because weight is
this
the
stuff
enemy.
is really heavy in a car.
Yeah.
It's really heavy.
Yeah, and that's another challenge that people don't often think about is things like that weight. The old maxim, weight only has value in a steamroller, and it's all of those things of constantly thinking how does this aircraft not gain weight and hit those targets, deliver what it's supposed to do, and still have that payload at the end of the day, still have that range at the end of the day.
I think if we've positioned ourselves very carefully in the available design space to try and be the best of all things, and that's never truly possible, but the best of all things for our selected market. So it's a proper helicopter. It's quite big as a 5-seat helicopter, and that gives you the capacious cabin. It's a very streamlined helicopter, so that gives us the low drag and the high cruise speed. But you put those two things together, and you've now got a massive surface area.
Yeah,
right. And if you're making a composite monocoque structure, well, the mass follows the surface area.
Yeah.
So you're immediately challenging yourself on keeping the weight of the structure down, as opposed to the traditional bubble and boom configuration of helicopters that were just designed by the engineering fundamentals. Unfortunately, the engineering fundamentals doesn't sell.
Yeah.
So you've got to do this, but it's why HX50 has got a relatively high gross weight and an empty weight for a 5-seater.
Now, thinking about design, I know that there's a separate debate. Talking to your team here, there is a great debate: the wheels versus skid debate.
So yeah, I'm a child of the 1980s. I'm a massive Airwolf
and fan. You're thinking
So
Airwolf.
the helicopter that I designed was always going to have wheels.
Yeah.
And as a private pilot that flies from home to work and from work to suppliers and colleagues, and then away at the weekend, hotels and golf clubs, and not golf clubs, I don't play golf, but that sort of thing. Wheels is ideal because the aircraft cleans up really nicely in flight. You get a significant advantage on your cruise speed. It's really convenient to move the thing around, pulling it in and out of the hangar, moving around on the grounds around airports and not blowing other lighter aircraft around. And I don't very often go and land in riverbeds and swamps and on rocky outcrops and things like that. So I don't need skids. But landing gear is really complicated. I mean, outrageously complicated when you think of all the things that you've got to do to retract it, to lock it up and down, to sense that it's up and down, the actuation, all the electronics that are involved in it, the brakes. Skids don't have brakes. The tires are really heavy. So the undercarriage is heavy. It's significantly heavier than the skids. And then just to add insult to injury, we made a really good job of the skids, so the skids look really cool, and a lot of the customers really like the skids. So when we launched it, there was never a skid option, and then I think at the time it was about 15% of people were asking, "I'd prefer skids because I land in riverbeds or I land on snowy mountains or on the beach." And I thought, well, obviously I hadn't thought about that, but we had to do that. And so we did it, and then Henry went and made a really good job of it. And so now loads of people want skids.
Loads of people want skids.
And to really dig the knife in, they're lighter as well.
So
it cost you a bit of speed, but they're lighter.
Yeah, you can give up on it. There's no free ride in aviation. Yeah. Jason Hill, we are beaten on time. I could talk all day about this project. It's gaining ground. You know, I have to say, I'll be honest, I was a cynic at the beginning. I thought, nice idea.
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. It's a nice idea, but let's see. And the let's see is beginning to happen. Congratulations on the engine run. And I'm excited to see what happens in the coming months and weeks.
Thank you. Well, we're going to work the engine very hard. We're not far away from first flight now. And we're just going to keep doing what we do. From my perspective, we're in such an incredibly strong position now. We've sold approaching 1,500 of these. We've got a £720 million order book. Nothing can stop us now. It's just a question of how long it takes us to finish off the engineering, go through the approvals and get the thing into service. But whether you're for us or against us, whether you believe we'll see it through or not, is irrelevant.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep doing the work, and when all the work's done, deliver these aircraft to our customers.
Yeah. It all proves out in the wash. Jason, once again, thanks very much for the time. And what is, as I mentioned at the top of the show, a busy day for you. Much appreciate your time and input to this episode. And I look forward to coming. What to me is so far north, I nearly got a nosebleed, being a South Coast guy. Although I did go on my uncle's canal boat to the Tixel Wide once, which is not very far from here. I look forward to coming back up here one day and flying an HX50.
We'd love to have you.
But for now, Jason Hill, thank you very much.
Thanks, Gideon.
And that's been another episode of the RotorHub International Podcast. Join us again next time when we'll be talking everything vertical lift.